know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Marian Okon on 99.3 Nigeria.
It's time for us to take a trip to Rwanda. I wanted to go to Rwanda and Kenya at the same time, but you see, I don't want to stress you. So let's go to Rwanda today. And my guest today on Global Review is my very good friend. He's a journalist. I always call him journalist per excellence. He's the tallest guy that I know. And he went to get married without my knowledge. I've not sent my wedding gift yet. Dolapo Aina is a journalist who resides in Rwanda. And today I did tell you, I gave you a little idea of what we're going to be talking about. The fact that Rwanda has declared, a free visa travel for all Africans. So if you're not African, sorry for you. Dolapo, it's so good to have you join us. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Marianne, good evening. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you online.
I've always wanted to do this. Sit on this other side and just have.
Good evening. Good evening, Lagos. Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening, Africa. Any part of Africa you are in the world, and good evening, everyone.
Great.
Good to see you again, Marianne.
Good to see you.
Let's go.
Yes. So, for those who do not know about this Rwanda, this story that recently broke about Rwanda declaring itself visa-free for Africans to come in, a lot of people would think that this is the first it's happened, but I realized that Seychelles was one of the first countries in Africa to declare visa-free travels for all Africans, and then the Gambia at the end of 2022, and then here we are with Kenya and Rwanda. But let's talk about Rwanda. We know of all the things that have happened. In fact, when you think of Rwanda, you remember all that the Rwandans have been through, and now they're rebuilding their country. And one of the pivotal things that I think that the president has done is to embrace some form of tourism. And that's why we see on the shirts of my very favorite team, the Arsenal, you see, Travel Rwanda on their shirts, etc., etc. Do you think that maybe this opening up of its borders to all Africans for free is also a tourism move or a trade move?
So let me I'll your question. Let me just clarify something. Why Rwanda's name is coming up now again, and the visa-free policy is because of the statement President Kagame made some months ago during a tourism conference, I believe.
Yes.
Basically, he reiterated something that has been ongoing in Rwanda since 2018, because as of 2018, Rwanda had a policy that was largely based on visa on arrival, which did not require application. And just during the first quarter of 2020, I remember vividly because I wrote just before COVID. I remember vividly because I wrote an article on it. Rwanda modified that visa on arrival policy and went on something innovative, which a lot of African countries are not on then, which was visa-free. There was a visa policy for African countries, the 55 African countries, and African passports. So basically, the policy was visa-free for Africans with African passports, the Commonwealth countries, and La Francophonie. La Francophonie is French for the Francophone community.
Yeah.
So basically, when you break it down, it's basically meant it just basically meant visa-free for 30 days. So visa, and I'm sure you know because you were here sometime last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So it's basically a 30-day visa-free stay policy, visa-free stay for African countries, AU countries, Commonwealth and Francophone
countries.
So that's one. Then there's another visa policy for East African countries.
Yes, I think I used that one. That's the one. East African tourist visa. Yes, so it allows you into Uganda, to Kenya, and Rwanda.
if I recall, that was the one you used because you were on a East African tour with your fellowship and everything.
Yeah.
So now there is an East African, there is a visa that is for East Africans, that is visa for 6 months. It stands with East African passports. Then they have special, then that's the second one. Now there is a different visa policy, which is basically visa free for 90 days for some specific countries like Ghana, Angola, Qatar, Sierra Leone, Mauritius, Philippines, few countries. So there are different types. So basically, but the one everybody talks about on the African continent is the visa-free policy for 30 days, which in a nutshell, which basically means you can pack your bags, you can pack your travel bags if you're in Mushi. You don't need to apply for a visa. You hop on your next flight, you get to Rwanda, you get to the airports, which is, okay, let us talk about airports and functionalities, which is one of the best functioning airports I have been to.
No, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I think the first time I went to Rwanda is the first time I met you. That's how we became friends. That was in 2019. And
Yes, 2019,
yes,
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
I do remember when I got to that airport, I saw very young people attending to everyone. The cleanest airport I've seen. It might be small, but it was very, very, I think it's the most receptive, experience I had at an airport. And I do remember when we got there, everybody was whispering, I hope you don't have nylon bag. No nylon bag in your...
yes, yeah, I remember that conversation. I remember when we were at the airport, yeah.
So
true. So okay, go on. I'm listening.
No, I'm just saying you should talk about it but that's part of the tourism that people consider when they're traveling to Rwanda.
I've done a bit of traveling, and one of the things I've realized is we say it back home as we think is a joke, but it's actually true. It's actually true. The first impression about a country is the airport. Yep. Just like when you go to a company, the first impression about a company is what? The reception. If it's not the reception, it's the security guard. Not the security guard, then it's the reception. It's the same thing about countries. The first impression you get about countries, the first impression you get about the country is from the airport. If the impression you get about any impression you get about a country, if it's positive, trust me, that is how you feel when you get to the tourist sites of the place when you get in.
Yeah.
If the impression you get about a country is cleanliness, efficiency, less cumbersome, like that, that is what you will see. If the first impression you get about a country once you get in is disorderliness, is chaos, trust me, that is what you get once you get. So I started coming here 2014, and as at 2014, the airport you pass is compact now and efficient. There were some major renovations going on in 2014 April, and it was still efficient. Major renovations going on in April 2014, and it was still efficient. So anyway, that's what I would say about.
Let's talk about what Paul Kagame said while he declared, visa-free travel for Africans to Rwanda. He also talked about he talked about Africa. In fact, he emphasized Africa's potential as a unified tourism destination. I'm going to pose you a question. I know that you have written a lot about this. Why it is so difficult to travel across Africa, within Africa, and it's such a heinous task. A lot of people will say that Ethiopia has created some sort of a hub, but then it's not as accessible as it should be. For example, I'm half Sierra Leone. Thinking of going to Sierra Leone before now, thanks to a few airlines now in Nigeria that allows you to go direct. Thinking back in the day when my mom said, "Oh, let's go visit," it's something your Bible call Iranu. It's funny. You have to go all the way down and then come back. It was just crazy. So
yes.
How will this opening up of visas for African countries help to grow that unified tourism on the continent?
Let me go back. Let me go back just a level before I come to you. Before I come to your answer. I'm not really in the finance space, but I've been following. Everybody has been following what has been going on with the after agreement and everything.
Yes.
It's good on paper. It's on paper. It's for this to demonstrate part of this. Yes, I have business partners in the parts of the continents, but I know that this week is very important. But you can't do them because you're probably using African passports, or because you have to go to the embassy to get a visa. Now, I'm going to be very diplomatic. I'm not going to mention embassies in Nigeria, who we all know give us African embassies in Nigeria, in Lagos, on the island, or in Abuja. African embassies who give Nigerian passport holders difficult time just to get visas. So it basically means if regular folks are having this kind of issues, then that means people who are in the business space, who deal in trade across the continent, will be having issues they don't actually talk about, or they try to solve by themselves. Now, to your question, when you make, I'm not going to go into theory. A lot of things I'll be saying with practical, because I pretty much I live it, I stay here, and I understand how it works. So I'm not giving terminologies, but just examples, practicalities. So now when an African country comes up and says, you know what, open our borders for people, Africans with open our borders for Africans or African passport holders. What people don't tend to realize is that the rippling effects are things you can't even quantify immediately. You bring in people, meaning when you open your borders to people and visa-free, you bring in human capital. Now, human capital is just muscle, it's also intellectual. You get it? Now, intellectual, you can't quantify intellectual financial-wise. You can't quantify it. You bring in human capital, a subtext of human capital is financial, intellectual, contact-wise. I don't want to go into the number of, let me be diplomatic. I don't want to go into the number of West Africans who lived in the diaspora in the Western world, and who decided to relocate back to Africa, but they didn't relocate back to their base. That is where they were born or where they
moved to other parts of Africa.
They are here. Yes, and they are here in Rwanda because when they were thinking about, let me go back home with family and their contacts and their money and all whatnot, they said, which country is acceptable to me? So what do they look for? And they don't want to have Western passports. I want to use my Ghanaian passport or my Sierra Leonean passport or my Nigerian passport to move around Africa. So what do? Which country pops up when they do a bit of research on Google? Rwanda. Why? It's visa free. So now, what for entry? Move into that country. Let's stick to Africans. Africans move into that country. Africans set up businesses in that country. They spend their capital in that country. Capital, financial, emotional, psychological, professional, everything. And guess what? Now there's something we all know called word of mouth.
Referrals.
Word of mouth. You have other referrals. You have other people who are in your circle, professional circle, economic circle, social circle, who are in the West, and they're thinking of starting something up, coming to Africa. Who do they get in touch with? You, who they know stays somewhere. Or if you are going to make referrals to them, what will be your first port of call? Oh, check out this country. Check out this country. Oh, come here and see what is happening. Then make up your mind. Now, you don't just wake up and say this something. Okay, I'm going to practical.
Because of time, Dolapo, because of time, because just 2 minutes.
And adverts.
2 minutes. Other countries and from what Rwanda, the Gambia, Kenya is doing. For me, I take Kenya or any other country anytime, any day. I may have an affinity for Kenya. But what can the likes of Nigeria, where we have so many great sites that it takes people from outside the country to come and photograph them and do TikTok videos for us to realize the jewel that we have in this country. What can countries like us learn from what the likes of Rwanda is doing? We have just a minute to wrap this up.
Get leadership right. When I was discussing with someone today, everything boils down to leadership. Get leadership right, every other thing will fall into place. Let me give you an example. I was in Namibia last year and I had some discussions. Namibia is about to implement almost the same thing. If they haven't, it has passed through cabinet reading and everything. Get leadership right. Countries don't just wake up and say visa free on arrival. When countries get to the point, without security, visa on arrival policy cannot work. It's also, that's basically countries that are big on tourism. Yes, they are doing tourism, but what they're actually saying is security.
Yeah.
You were here last year, and you know how safe you were. You know how safe you were. You get security right, then visa free on arrival will be possible. You don't get security right, visa free on arrival is dead on arrival.
I wish we had time, Dolapo, so that people can call and talk about Rwanda.
Yes.
But we will do this again time soon. Dolapo Aina is a journalist and he is based in Rwanda. He's Nigerian, just so you know. Aina is not Luna, he's Nigerian and he's illegal. Thank you so much, Dolapo, for coming on the show. Unfortunately, time is not our friend. But thank you for coming in and
understand. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And keep me a warm space soon. I'm coming to Rwanda. Tell your wife to cook something for me. I'm coming.
As Rwanda, you are welcome.
Okay, all right. Thank you for coming. We'll take a break, Lagos. When we come time, I'll tell you what's going to happen on the side.
99.3 Nigeria. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates.